Hey everyone, welcome to visionrecordingstudios.com. In today's video, I'm going to talk to you about the single most important thing that you can purchase to get your mixes to sound better instantly. Regardless of your experience level, regardless of how long you've been mixing, regardless of all the different plugins, DAWs, and outboard gears you may have, if you get this one thing, your mixes will be instantly better. I guarantee it, no questions asked. So what is this thing that I need to get? I know you're all asking. Is it the next Slate digital plugin that Dave's always raving about? Is it the universal audio stuff? What kind of crazy outboard gear do I have to have? How much is this all going to cost me? How can I just get one thing that'll make my mixes sound better, regardless of my experience level? Well, let me show you. It's right here. Acoustic treatment. That's what we're going to be talking about today on visionrecordingstudios.com. This is a bass trap by Auralex, and I have several of these throughout my control room, as well as some other bass traps and some acoustic foam from other manufacturers. Acoustic treatment is the single most important thing you can do in your control room to get your mixes to sound better. And you may be asking yourself, why is that? Because if you are mixing in an environment that is not treated acoustically and not treated well, and just a bare room without acoustic treatment throughout it, you're not really hearing accurately what's coming out of your monitors, what's coming from your mix. If you ever had the situation where you mix something, it sounds great in your room, and then you take that mix out to the car and it doesn't sound right, the bass, the low end is usually way off, the high end may be kind of all over the place. What sounds good in your room, in your control room, in your mixing environment, more times than not will not sound good outside of that control room or that mixing environment unless you have a room that's been acoustically treated so you can accurately hear what's coming out of the monitors that you're mixing from, and it translates well outside of your control room. This is the number one thing that a lot of beginners don't understand when they first get into mixing, and I get this question an awful lot. So today I'm going to show you around my studio. I'm going to show you the different kinds of acoustic treatment that I have, where it's placed throughout my space, and kind of give you some links and some information below in the description. And then at the very end of the video, I'm going to do some panning sweeps around the control room so you can see all the different acoustic treatment and how it's placed all in one big panning motion with the camera. And then I'm also going to take you online to a website where you have a free resource that you can use to develop a floor plan of your mixing space. And the reason why you want to do that is because when you contact some of these acoustic treatment companies, they will have a free room analysis where you'll fill out a questionnaire, send them some pictures of your mixing environment, or send them a floor plan, and they'll in turn take that information, and based on your space and based on your specific situation, they'll recommend what kind of acoustic treatment you'll need to get the maximum results out of your space. So when you take your mixes outside of your control room, they translate, they sound just as good in any other listening environment as they do in your control room. And that is super, super, super important. It is more important than any plugin. It is more important than any piece of outboard gear. It is the single most important thing, and the very first thing I tell people when they're setting up their new mixing space, especially if they're a newbie, before you buy real high-end monitors, before you buy a real high-end computer, before you buy all the new and latest and greatest vintage plugins, analog emulators, all that stuff, before you do any of that, the very first thing you want to do is make sure that your room is acoustically treated in the best way possible, and that you have your listening environment set up in a way that will ensure that you will get a really good mix that translates outside of your control room. So we're going to talk about acoustic treatment today here on visionrecordingstudios.com, so stay tuned. Okay, before we take a look at different sections of the control room and kind of show you how my acoustic treatment is placed, I wanted to show you the two different companies that I have acoustic treatment from and the different types, so you can kind of get a feel when you see the later footage what this acoustic treatment is. So the first thing we have here is your standard Auralex bass trap, 24 inches by 6 inches deep, I think 24 inches across, or 16 inches across, I'm sorry. These are, pretty industry standard, real dense foam that you would go put in the different corners of your, throughout your room, from the floor to the ceiling. I had these in one of my old control rooms, and I repurposed this in my new control room. So this is just a standard bass track by Auralex that you can find anywhere online. And then the other two types of bass trapping that I have is from a company out in Orlando, Florida called Acoustic Mac. And I'll leave all the links in the description so you can kind of check them out. These are custom-made bass traps. Here's one here for the corner. These things are 43 inches tall, and I have two of these in the two front corners of my control room, going from the floor to the ceiling, one stacked on top of the other. These weigh probably 30 some odd pounds a piece. These are 6 inches deep by 24 inches across, 43 inches high. As I said, these things are filled with Corning's insulation, and they have a wooden side here. This is kind of the shape of the corners, so they fit real nicely in the corners. And on the back side, they're solid, so you can they have some mounting hardware that you put on the back of the bass trap on your wall in the corner, and they just kind of hang up like a picture. So they're easy to take on and off, they're easy to maneuver around. And the back is solid, there's fabric all the way around. This is in burgundy, they offer all kinds of different colors. A single bass trap of this size, of a say 40 inch, I think 48 inches is as tall as a single unit is. 24 by 48 by 6, I believe runs about 170 bucks or so, again in pricing in 2014. Check out their website. But this is really nice. This, in my mind, is a step up from something like this. Although this works really well, this looks a little more custom. It looks a little bit nicer in your studio, as opposed to something like this, and you can get the different color fabrics that kind of match the decor and the paint on your walls. And I guess you could do that with Auralex too, but they have more variety with the Acoustic Mac. So this is a corner bass trap. So these two things here, the Auralex and the Acoustic Mac, do the same thing. They go in the corners of the room. This is a little bit more heavy duty, a little bit more effective, a little bit more expensive, but these are nice, and you can, again, just hang these up on the wall. Down here is another type of a bass trap by Acoustic Mac, but this is just a 24 inch by 24 inch by 4 square, filled with the same Cornings. Again, I have these positioned on the back wall of my studio, which you'll see in a few minutes. And it's the same as the corner trap, it's just a complete cube, just a perfect cube, 24 by 24 by 4. And again, with hardware on the back that you kind of just hang up onto the wall. Actually, I could show you these brackets here. So there's the back side of one of these bass traps. And it's just, again, this is wood all the way around, filled with insulation. 2 brackets on the top, 2 on the bottom, again on the wall. They just kind of hang up like a picture. Again, these are bass traps, and they're really thick, really dense. This probably weighs about 12 pounds. This is quite a bit heavier. So those are the 2 different companies and the 3 different styles of acoustic treatment that I have throughout my studio. So now what we'll do is we'll start on the front wall, I'll reposition the camera, and we'll go section by section and kind of show you how I'm using these 3 pieces of acoustic treatment throughout the control room, so you can kind of get a feel for what this all kind of looks like when it's on the wall. And then at the end, what I'll do is I'll bring the camera back as far as I can, and I'll try to do a complete sweep, pan around the room, so you can see all the different acoustic treatments kind of from from the back of the room perspective. It's a little difficult to film this all at once because the room is not that big, and I only have a certain amount of wide angle on my lens. So I'm going to try to do this and piece it all together and make it look as good as I can for you guys, so you guys really get a feel for how did I place the acoustic treatment. And again, these are the brands of acoustic treatment that I use. So now we'll go over to the front wall, and I will show you how I position these bass traps, and we'll go right around the room, and you'll take a look at the whole control room. Okay, now that we've taken a look at the 2 types of acoustic treatment that I'm using here in my studio, I'm going to go section by section and kind of take you around a room and show you how the acoustic treatment is placed. And again, somewhere in this video when I edit it, I will be doing some panning sweeps so you can kind of see the whole room. It's a little difficult. My control room's not that big to get the camera and get enough of a wide angle to kind of show you things, but I want to try to give you the best perspective as I can. So where I'm standing now, I'm standing with my back halfway inside of my vocal booth, which is if you were looking at my workstation, my console, my DAW, you could see one of my monitors here. I'm on the left side of that, okay? And this is the front wall here, obviously in front of the speakers, and this is the left-hand corner. And as you can see, I have a bass trap here, 2 bass traps actually, from floor to ceiling, which is really a great way. One of the most important things you want to do is you want to be able to put bass trapping in the front 2 corners of the room from floor to ceiling. Again, these were made by Acoustic Mac, and I'll leave the link in the description below. These are 24 inches wide by 43 inches high, and there's two of them, one on top of the other, that are just kind of press fitted into the corners here. And there's some mounting hardware on the back side that they kind of just clip on the wall, so they can be kind of taken on and off the wall, kind of like a picture, if you will. And these are 6 inches deep into the corner. These things each weigh probably around 30-ish pounds, I would have to guess. So they're really dense, they're really heavy, they're really well made. With the Corning insulation in here, and these things do a wonderful job of controlling the low end and the front end of the room. So there's one tower here, if you will, one on top of the other, and then two on the other side of the on the right corner, which you'll see during the panning sweeps here. Over here, but behind the monitors, you can probably see there is some Oralex 1 foot, 12 inch by 12 inch, 2 inches thick foam on the front walls, and kind of a diamond pattern there to kind of knock and keep the high end frequencies from slapping around the room. So the bass traps take care of the low end, obviously, and the acoustic foam kind of takes care of the high end. And again, it's duplicated on the other side of the workstation, which you can't see from this angle, but you'll see soon in some other footage. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you, kind of reposition the camera and take you to the other section of the studio here, so you can we'll kind of go around the room so you can see it in different sections. And then again, at the end, you'll see a sweeping pattern of the whole control room, and you'll kind of get a feel for how the acoustic treatment is placed. But again, it's real important. Front walls, 2 corners, floor to ceiling, you want bass traps in the front wall. So let's take a look at another section of the studio. Okay, so here we are over to the left side of the control room. To give you a point of reference, my workstation and DAW and monitors in the front wall of the studio is directly in front of me to my left. And this is kind of like a little, I would call it like a little cove area. The room is not perfectly square. There's a couple of little jogs of the walls. There's a 3-foot wall here, a 4.5-foot wall here, and then obviously a wall behind me with an overhang above me. And this little cove or cubby, if didn't have acoustic treatment in it, could certainly give you a lot of bass buildup and a lot of echo. It would sound like a little echo chamber. So it was important that I put acoustic treatment in here. So just like on the front wall, in the corners to my left and right from floor to ceiling, you'll see bass traps. Those are made by Oralex. I had those in my old studio, and I brought them over here to my new studio. And when I needed additional acoustic treatment, I went ahead and purchased the Acoustic Max stuff we talked about earlier. And then directly behind me on the wall, we have some, again, Oralex foam for the higher frequencies. Directly above me, there's some Oralex foam. So this little cubby area is kind of well treated, and there's no echo, no slap back in this part. I have a nice fabric futon here, and directly under my feet here is an area rug. The whole studio is concrete floors with area rugs throughout to cut back on the slap back. So that's this little area to the left side of my workstation. So now I'm going to reposition the camera and take it to the other side of the room. There's another cubby over on the other side that's a little different than this, that I've treated slightly different. And then we'll take a look at the back wall, and then we will conclude this acoustic treatment tour. Okay, now we're on the right side of my control room, with my workstation being directly in front of me, about 3-4 feet in front of me to my right. And this is that other little cove that you saw, this little cubby area, as you saw in the footage. This is about a 4-foot by 5-foot by 3-foot little jog here, again in the wall with a chair here, and on the back wall you'll see one of those 24-inch by 24-inch by 6-inch deep Acoustic Mac bass traps, and directly underneath it you'll see some Oralex 1 by 1 foot by 2-inch thick just standard foam to cut back on some of the slap back. Unlike the left side, where I have the ceiling and more of the walls kind of covered, I didn't do that in here. I have some pictures and some stuff up here, and I thought this might pose a problem, but honestly it really doesn't. It doesn't seem to affect my mixing at all. As a matter of fact, I don't even notice the difference. I take a mix out of this room and it translates perfectly. So although there's a little more slap back in this area than there is on the other side of the room, and I probably could add some more sound acoustic treatment in here, I really don't need to. My mixes aren't affected by it, which is great. And then directly here to my left is another Acoustic Mac 48-inch long by 24-inch wide by 6-inch deep bass trap just on the wall here to cut down on the reflections. So that is the right side of the control room. So now the last step we'll take is we'll look at the back wall. I'll kind of show you what I'm doing there, and then we'll conclude this little tour. Okay, so here we are at the very back wall of the control room, which is probably about 15 feet away from the mix position. And this window here looks into one of the live rooms, and I'll show you how I deal with the sound reflecting off the glass and bouncing back in a second. But as you can see here, we have again the 24-inch by 24-inch by 6 inches deep Acoustic Mac bass traps, 3 of them along right underneath the window. Above the glass window, if you can see it in the frame here, I'm not sure, there is the Auralex bass traps that I showed you a little earlier on the other side of the studio, that's kind of mounted between the ceiling and this back wall all along the length of the wall. So you have bass trapping up here, bass trapping down here. This door behind me is the door that actually enters the studio. There's nothing on this door right now for acoustic treatment, but there will be. There'll probably be another one of the Acoustic Mac square bass traps that we talked about, the 48-inch long ones. I just have to order it. And the way I currently deal with this window when I'm mixing, when I'm tracking, I obviously have to see what's going on in the room. But when I'm mixing, all I do is I take an old piece of this old acoustic foam, which is 48 inches long by 4 inches deep. And it's kind of this, what looks to be like recyclable denim material, kind of dense, kind of thick. And for now, I just kind of leave it up in the window to kind of cut back on the reflection. What my plan to do is to have something more permanently, or not permanently, but something that maybe fits this window cavity perfectly that I can pull in and out. Or I may also go with something like this across the window and then get some nice heavy drapes or something that kind of comes from the top of the bass traps up here that I can close and open up to kind of cut down on the reflections when I'm in mixing. And then when I'm recording and I'm not mixing, I can pull this out, open up the drapes, and that will suffice. So this is the back wall of the control room. And again, I will show you pans of the entire control room so you can see how all this acoustic treatment is placed. Okay, here is this free resource that I told you about online that can help you develop a floor plan of your room that you want to acoustically treat. And this is really great. So it's completely free. It's at floorplanner.com. Again, up here, floorplanner.com, and you log in. You can with a free account, and when you sign in, you're going to be able to get into this area here where you can design your room. And this here is the design of my control room that you just saw throughout this entire video. Excuse me. And this is a real easy program to use. I'm not going to show you how to create a room, but I mean, it took me 5 minutes to figure this out. You could place furniture in the room. You could place dimensions in the room, where there's doors, where there's windows. And then you can export this as a PDF file, or you can print it. So you can send it off. You could. I did it as a PDF, so I was able to send it off to Acoustic Mac, which helped me with the acoustic placement and treatment in my room. So this is great, where you can, when you contact a place like Auralex or Acoustic Mac or any more of these other companies, more times than not, they have a free room analysis where you'll fill out a questionnaire, a bunch of information about your room. You could take some pictures of your room. You can send them a floor plan. And then what they'll do is they'll take that information and they will take a look at what acoustic treatment you already currently have, if you have any, if you provide them with that information, or if you're starting from a blank, clean slate. And they will tell you and show you what acoustic treatment you should have and where. Where should you put the bass traps? Where should you just put the standard foam? How much of it should you use? So on and so forth. So here is my room here, just again to give you kind of the dimensions. Here's my workstation. This room has concrete floors with area rugs throughout, so it's not completely carpeted. My ceilings are 7.5 feet high, with an acoustic drop ceiling in it. So there's no acoustic treatment, so to speak, anywhere on the ceiling, but there's acoustic, tiles on the ceiling. The room is 21 feet wide by 16 feet deep. You can see all the dimensions here. You can see where I put the couch in this one little cove area, or cubby area, as I call it, to the left side of the desk. Here's the other one on the right side. So you can see this right here's the vocal booth right here, over here in the top left-hand corner. Obviously, here's my desk, my speakers, where I showed on my speakers were about a foot away from the wall. Here are the 2 floor lamps that I have. Here was my file cabinet where my computer and computer station kind of sits. And I have doors here and windows on the back wall here. So as you can see, this is not a perfectly squared room, which I guess in acoustic treatment speak, that's actually a good thing. I had to deal with the space that I have. So I got all these kind of little jogs and kind of cubbies. And when I sent this to Acoustic Mac, they sent me back some information and showed me how to place the acoustic treatment. And one thing that I didn't really mention as much inside the video, and I apologize, there's not as much acoustic foam for the higher frequencies. There's a lot more bass trapping in my room based on their recommendation. There is some standard foam, for the high frequencies on the front wall here in front of the speakers. But more of the room is covered in bass trapping per their recommendation. And I got to say, it's worked really well. As I take mixes out of my control room, they translate perfectly just about on any computer system or stereo car system that I put my mixes in, which is great. So the acoustic treatment is super important. Here's a free resource, floorplanner.com, so you can get yourself a drawing of your room. Contact one of these acoustic treatment companies, get the free analysis, send it off, and then this way you can get professional help on where do you place the acoustic treatment, how much of it should you buy. Now, I will say, and I did not say, in the beginning of the video here, this is a small little investment. I mean, it's not the most expensive thing in the world, but, it is to do a room of this size. If you had no acoustic treatment in here, probably cost somewhere around the, $800 to $1,000 range to completely do this room. Whether you use Auralex or whether you use a secondary, another company like Acoustic Mac. Now, you can build some of these things yourself. You can build bass traps yourself. There's plenty of YouTube videos online to show you how to do the DIY, way of getting this done. And that's fine too. If you don't have the budget to spend to get professional stuff made, you can do it yourself. There's many ways to do this, as I said. But it is certainly the most important thing you can do. It's the most important piece of equipment, if you want to call it equipment or gear, that you can have. It's more important than any other plug-in, anything else that you use. If you don't have a room that is treated where you can make good mixing decisions, because you're going to hear what's coming out of that mix in an accurate way, and take the room out of that equation of giving you a false sense of what's really going on in the mix, you will never get a good mix. I don't care what vintage plugins you have. I don't care about all that other stuff. You got to have a good acoustically treated room. If you don't have any acoustic treatment, even if you do it in stages, if you don't have the budget to spend all the money up front, at least get you some acoustic treatment and build upon that. So anyway, here's a free resource. Hopefully this was helpful to you as well. If you have any questions, you can certainly email me at visionrecordingstudios.com. And again, thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. I hope this was helpful. I know it was a little bit of a longer video, but I wanted to try to give you some good information. I get lots of questions about acoustic treatment. And for more mixing tips, more tips and tricks of the trade of mixing, you could go to my website at visionrecordingstudios.com and check out the 6-hour-long tutorial, Mixing Made Easy. The links will be in the description below. Read the reviews, check it out. It's a great product, and it's helped a lot of people, and I know it can help you as well. So until next time, this is Dave from visionrecordingstudios.com, and I hope to speak and talk to you all soon. Take care, everybody.